The sensors at monitoring station Krell 9 had been quiet for 3 standard cycles. Senior operator Nixara stretched her forearms and yawned, her scales shifting from blue to a tired gray. Nothing ever happened in Sector 447. It was empty space, a void between trade routes where nobody went. Then her console exploded with warnings. Nixara sat up straight, her scales flashing bright orange with alarm. Energy readings were spiking in the dead zone, numbers climbing higher than anything she had seen in 20 years of service. Something massive had just appeared where nothing should exist. She activated the emergency channel. Station Krell 9 to Vortan Command. We have an unidentified vessel in Sector 447. Energy signature is off all known scales. The response came quickly. Krell 9, confirm your readings. That sector is empty. Confirming now, Command. Nixara's fingers flew across her controls. The visual feed came online and she gasped. Command, visual confirmed. Unknown vessel, design unlike anything in our database. It just appeared from nowhere. On her screen floated a ship that made no sense. It was large, perhaps 300 meters long, with a hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange markings covered its surface in a language nobody had ever seen. The design was sleek and purposeful, with none of the decorative elements that marked civilized vessels. Stand by. Krell 9. We are dispatching Commander Thalos with a patrol group. Nixara watched the strange ship on her screens. It was not moving, just floating in space, as if waiting. Waiting for what, she wondered. 3 hours later, Commander Thalos arrived with 5 Vortan cruisers. The Vortan commander was a massive being, even by his species standards. His gray skin was covered in the scars of a dozen campaigns, and his 6 eyes could track multiple targets at once. He had served the Vortan Collective for 40 years and had never met a species that did not bow to their authority. Unknown vessel? This is Commander Thalos of the Vortan Collective. He broadcast on all frequencies. You have entered regulated space without authorization. Identify yourself immediately and prepare for inspection. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then the ship's communication system activated, and a voice responded in perfect Vortan language. This is Captain Rebecca Stone of the Earth vessel Defiance. We are on a peaceful mission of exploration. We were not aware this space was claimed. Thalos leaned forward in his command chair. The voice belonged to a female, which was unusual but not unheard of among some species. More interesting was the name of her world. Earth was not in any database. Captain Stone, you will provide your species designation, homeworld coordinates, and submit to standard inspection protocols. All new species must be registered with the collective and assigned their appropriate status. Another pause. When the human spoke again, her voice was cooler. Commander, we appreciate the information. However, humanity does not recognize any external authority over our affairs. We are willing to establish diplomatic relations as equals, but we will not submit to inspection or registration. Thalos felt his temper rising. In all his years, no species had ever refused inspection. Captain Stone, you misunderstand your situation. The Vortan Collective maintains order in this region of space. All species must follow our regulations. This is not negotiable. Then we have a problem, Commander. Thalos activated his tactical display. His 5 cruisers surrounded the human ship in a standard containment formation. Captain Stone, I am authorized to use force if necessary. Power down your vessel and prepare to be boarded. This is your final warning. The human ship's energy readings suddenly spiked. Thalos's tactical officer shouted a warning. Sir, they are charging weapons. Multiple systems coming online. Impossible, Thalos muttered. Fire a warning shot across their bow. Show them we are serious. One of his cruisers fired a plasma bolt that streaked past the human vessel, close enough to demonstrate accuracy, but not close enough to cause damage. It was a standard intimidation tactic that always worked. The human ship did not react with fear. Instead, it moved. Thalos had never seen anything move that fast. One moment the Defiance was stationary. The next it had shifted position with impossible speed, putting 2 of his cruisers between itself and the others. His tactical officer was shouting numbers that made no sense. Sir, that acceleration should have crushed any crew inside. Nothing can move like that. All ships, attack pattern Delta, Thalos ordered. Disable that vessel. His cruisers opened fire with plasma weapons that had conquered 100 worlds. The bolt struck the human ship dead center in a display of light that lit up the sector. When the light faded, the Defiance was undamaged. Some kind of energy field had absorbed the impact. Impressive shields, Thalos admitted. Focus fire on their engine section. No shield can withstand concentrated fire from 5 cruisers. But before his ships could fire again, the human vessel responded. Small objects launched from hidden ports on its hull, moving faster than Thalas's sensors could track. They were not missiles in any traditional sense. They seemed to think, adjusting course and speed as they flew. The first object struck the cruiser Vengeance on its weapon array. There was no explosion, just a pulse of energy. The entire ship went dark, all systems offline in an instant. The second object hit the Pride of Vortan with the same result. Within 30 seconds, 3 of Thalas's 5 cruisers were floating dead in space, completely disabled but undamaged. What kind of weapon is that? Thalas's tactical officer whispered. Captain Stone's voice came over the communication channel again. Commander Thalas, we have disabled 3 of your vessels without harming any crew members. This is our only warning. Leave us alone and return to your collective. Tell them that humanity wishes for peace, but we will defend ourselves if attacked. Thalas stared at his display in disbelief. 3 cruisers disabled in seconds and the human ship had barely moved. His remaining 2 vessels were pulling back, their commanders requesting orders. Captain Stone, you have just committed an act of war against the Vortan Collective. Do you understand what you have done? I understand perfectly, Commander. You demanded we submit to your authority. You threatened us with force. You opened fire first.
We have only defended ourselves. Her voice hardened.
We are not your subjects, Commander. We never will be. Humanity bows to no one. Thalas made a decision. He was a warrior, but he was not a fool. This human ship had demonstrated capabilities far beyond what its size suggested. All ships withdraw to safe distance, maintain surveillance but do not engage. As his vessels pulled back, Thalas began recording his report to the Vortan High Command. They needed to know about this new species immediately. The humans called themselves peaceful, but they had military technology that could defeat Vortan cruisers with ease. That made them dangerous. Captain Stone, he said, this is not over. The collective will send representatives to discuss your status. I suggest you cooperate when they arrive. We will be happy to talk, Commander, but only as equals, never as subordinates. Safe travels. The human ship began moving away, its engines producing energy readings that Thalas's scientists would spend weeks trying to explain. Within minutes, it had accelerated to speeds that should have been impossible, and vanished into the darkness of space. Thalas looked at his disabled cruisers. Recovery teams were already on their way, and preliminary reports showed the crews were fine just without power. The humans had the ability to destroy his ships completely but had chosen not to. That showed either mercy or calculation, perhaps both. He finished his report and sent it on priority channels to Vortan Prime, the heart of the collective. Then he began the long process of analyzing what had just happened. His tactical computers had recorded every second of the encounter, and already strange patterns were emerging. The human ship had known exactly where to strike to disable the cruisers without harming the crews. That suggested detailed knowledge of Vortan ship design. But how? This was supposed to be first contact with an unknown species. Senior Operator Nixara's voice crackled over the channel. Commander, I have been scanning the sector. There are traces of old monitoring equipment scattered throughout the region, very advanced, very well hidden. I think someone has been watching us for a long time. Thalas felt a cold sensation spreading through his body. If the humans had been observing the collective without being detected, they knew far more about Vortan capabilities than the collective knew about them. This was not a primitive species stumbling into civilized space. This was a species that had been preparing. Continue scanning, he ordered. Find every piece of equipment you can. I want to know how long they have been watching us. 3 days later, his report reached Vortan Prime. The High Command read about the encounter with growing concern. A species that refused registration, defeated Vortan cruisers easily, and had apparently been spying on the collective for unknown periods of time, represented a threat to everything the Vortans had built. The council met in emergency session. Debates raged for hours about the proper response. Some argued for immediate military action to eliminate this threat. Others suggested diplomatic approaches to bring the humans into the collective peacefully. A few wise voices warned that a species capable of such technological achievement should not be underestimated. In the end, the decision was made. High Chancellor Vren announced the verdict to the assembled council. The species calling themselves humans have demonstrated hostile capabilities, and refuse to acknowledge collective authority. They represent an unauthorized military presence in our region of space. This cannot be tolerated. Friends, multiple eyes swept across the council chamber. I am ordering the formation of a containment fleet. 40 warships under Admiral Kelrax will proceed to the coordinates provided by Commander Thalos. They will locate the human homeworld and establish a blockade. The humans will be given one final chance to submit to collective authority. If they refuse, their military capabilities will be eliminated. The council voted in agreement. Within days, the largest Vortan fleet assembled in a generation began preparing for departure. Admiral Kelrax, a legendary warrior who had never lost a battle, would lead them. The collective was confident that 40 warships would be more than enough to handle one small human vessel and whatever primitive defenses their homeworld possessed. Nobody in the Vortan collective suspected that humanity had been preparing for this exact scenario for more than 50 years. Nobody knew that Earth's defensive capabilities would make the Defiance look like a simple scout ship. Nobody understood that humans had studied every weakness of every known species in the galaxy and had built weapons specifically designed to exploit those weaknesses. The war was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The war begins. The Defiance entered Earth's solar system 3 weeks after the encounter with Commander Thalos. Captain Rebecca Stone stood on her bridge, watching the blue and green planet grow larger on the view screen. Home. She had been away for 8 months, and the sight never failed to move her. Captain, we are being hailed by Orbital Command, reported her communications officer. Lieutenant Chen, put them through. The view screen shifted to show a man in his 60s with sharp gray eyes and a uniform decorated with more medals than Stone could count. Admiral Jackson Hayes, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, looked at her with an expression that mixed concern and curiosity. Captain Stone, welcome home. Your preliminary report was quite interesting. A Vortan patrol, you said? Yes, Admiral. 5 cruisers commanded by someone named Thalos. They demanded we submit to inspection and registration. When we refused, they attacked. Hayes leaned back in his chair. And you disabled 3 of their vessels without casualties? Correct, sir. We used the electromagnetic pulse weapons as designed. Their ships went dark, but all crew members survived. We wanted to make a point without starting a war. The Admiral was quiet for a moment. I am afraid that ship has sailed, Captain. Our long-range sensors detected a massive energy buildup in Vortan space 2 days ago. A fleet is being assembled. A large one. Stone felt her stomach tighten. How large? 40 warships. Maybe more. They are coming here, Rebecca. You led them right to us. Sir, with respect, they would have found us eventually. Better now when we are ready, than in 10 years when they might have been even stronger. Hayes smiled slightly. The Council agrees with you, which is why you are not being court-martialed. Dock at Station Alpha and report to my office in 2 hours. We have a great deal to discuss. 2 hours later, Captain Stone stood in the Admiral's office, which overlooked Earth from a massive space station that served as humanity's military headquarters. Hayes sat behind his desk, holographic displays floating in the air around him showing ship movements, weapon systems, and tactical scenarios. Sit down, Rebecca, Hayes said, gesturing to a chair. I want to know everything about your encounter. Every detail. Stone spent the next hour describing the meeting with the Vortans, their attitudes, their weapons, their tactics. Hayes listened without interrupting, his eyes constantly moving between her face and the data displays that appeared as she talked. When she finished, Hayes nodded slowly. You did well, Captain. You gave them chances to back down, demonstrated our capabilities without unnecessary killing, and delivered your message clearly. That is exactly the approach we planned for. Sir, if I may ask, how long have we been planning for this? Hayes stood and walked to the window, looking down at Earth below. Do you know why we built the Defiance, Rebecca? Why we spent billions on a ship designed for deep space exploration, armed with weapons that could disable enemy vessels without destroying them? I assumed it was standard precaution, sir. It was much more than that. Hayes turned to face her. 63 years ago, we detected alien signals. Not messages directed at us, just routine communications between space stations and patrol ships. We listened for months before we understood what we were hearing. There was a galactic civilization out there, and it was not the peaceful federation our scientists had hoped for. Stone felt a chill run down her spine. 63 years. We have known about aliens for that long. Yes, and everything we learned terrified us. The Vortan Collective, the species you just met, controls hundreds of worlds, but they do not govern through cooperation. They use a system of species hierarchy. Strong species rule, weak species serve. Every new species they encounter is evaluated and assigned a role. Warriors, laborers, technicians, servants, slavery, Stone whispered. Exactly. Oh, they do not call it that. They call it the natural order, the great chain of civilization. But it is slavery nonetheless. Hayes returned to his desk and pulled up a holographic image. This is what happened to the Kithar. They were a species discovered by the Vortans 40 years ago. Peaceful, artistic, highly intelligent. The Vortans evaluated them and decided they would make excellent servants. The Kithar refused. Within 2 years, their entire civilization was destroyed. 3 billion dead. Stone stared at the images of ruined cities and burned worlds. And we have been preparing to fight them ever since. We had no choice. Once we understood what was out there, we knew contact was inevitable. We could either hide forever, hoping they never found us, or we could prepare to defend ourselves. We chose preparation. Hayes pulled up more displays showing weapon systems, ship designs, tactical plans. For 60 years we watched them. We placed hidden monitoring stations throughout Vortan space. We studied their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses. We built weapons specifically designed to counter their capabilities. Everything you saw on the Defiance, every weapon system, every defensive measure, was created with one purpose in mind. To fight the Vortans. To survive contact with them, yes. We hoped for peace, Rebecca. We genuinely did, but we prepared for war. Hayes met her eyes. And now war is coming to us. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Earth's defense forces, which had been training for decades for exactly this scenario, moved into position. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as mining stations or research facilities revealed their true nature. Ships that civilian populations thought were cargo haulers opened hidden bays and deployed military hardware. The entire solar system transformed into a fortress. Captain Stone was given command of the defensive line, a position that coordinated 17 ships and 43 weapons platforms. She studied the tactical maps constantly, trying to predict where the Vortans would attack and how to counter them most effectively. Lieutenant Chen approached her during one of these planning sessions. Captain, long-range sensors have detected the Vortan fleet. They will arrive in 6 hours. Stone felt her heart rate increase but kept her voice calm. How many ships? 42 capital ships, multiple support vessels. They are traveling in standard Vortan battle formation. Shields up, weapons charged. Send the information to all defensive positions. Everyone goes to battle stations in 4 hours. Make sure medical facilities are prepared for casualties. As Chen left to carry out her orders, Stone allowed herself a moment of fear. 42 warships against 17. The numbers were not in humanity's favor. But numbers did not tell the whole story. The Vortans were bringing weapons designed to fight other Vortan ships and known species. Humanity was bringing weapons designed specifically to kill Vortans. Admiral Hayes appeared on her communication screen. All defensive forces report ready, Captain. The Vortan fleet will drop out of faster-than-light travel just beyond our outer sensor range. They will expect to find a primitive world with minimal defenses. Instead, they will find us, Stone said quietly. Yes. Remember your training, Rebecca. We offer them every chance to withdraw peacefully. But if they attack, we hit them hard and fast. The goal is to disable their fleet quickly, with minimal casualties on both sides. Understood, sir. 6 hours later, the Vortan fleet appeared exactly where human calculations predicted. Admiral Kelrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the destroyer of worlds, and looked at the sensor readings with satisfaction. The human homeworld was there, third planet from a yellow star, just as Commander Thalas had described. Scanner report, Kelrax ordered. His voice was deep and confident, the voice of someone who had won 100 battles. Admiral, detecting multiple satellites around the planet. Some appear to be weapons platforms, but the technology seems primitive. Energy signatures are low. Kelrak smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Exactly as expected. A young species with basic defensive capabilities. This will be over quickly. He activated the communication system. Human vessels, this is Admiral Kelrax of the Vortan Collective. You have been declared an unauthorized military presence. Surrender immediately and no harm will come to your world. Resist and we will eliminate your military capabilities by force. Captain Stone's face appeared on his view screen. Kelrak studied her carefully. She looked calm, which surprised him. Most species showed fear when facing a Vortan battle fleet. Admiral Kelrax, I am Captain Rebecca Stone, commander of Earth's defensive forces. We have no desire for war. Withdraw your fleet from our system and we can discuss peaceful relations. Kelrax laughed. You are in no position to make demands, human. You face 42 warships. Surrender or be destroyed. Stone's expression did not change. Admiral, you have been warned. Leave now while you still can. The arrogance stunned Kelrax. You dare threaten me? Very well. All ships, attack formation. Target their weapons platforms first, then their ships. Show these primitives the price of defiance. The Vortan fleet moved forward in perfect formation, a wall of firepower that had destroyed countless enemies. Kelrax watched with satisfaction as his ships locked weapons on the human defensive positions. Fire! He commanded. Plasma bolts and energy beams lanced out from 42 warships, enough firepower to crack a small moon. The weapons struck the human platforms in waves of light and energy. When the light faded, every platform was still there, completely undamaged. What? Kelrax stared at his displays. How is that possible? Nothing can withstand that much firepower. His tactical officer's voice shook. Admiral, their shields are unlike anything we have seen. The energy is being absorbed and dispersed. Our weapons are having no effect. Before Kelrax could respond, the human platforms returned fire, but they did not use energy weapons. They used something far more primitive and far more deadly. Solid projectiles, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rails, struck the Vortan ships like hammers from the gods. The projectiles were made of dense metal, moving at a significant fraction of light speed. Vortan shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, were useless against solid matter traveling that fast. The first projectile punched through the shield of the cruiser Relentless and tore through the ship from bow to stern. The vessel split in half, atmosphere venting into space. The second projectile destroyed the Conqueror's engine section in a single hit. The third, fourth, and fifth projectiles disabled 3 more ships in rapid succession. Impossible, Kelrax screamed. How are they penetrating our shields? Admiral, they are not using energy weapons. They are firing solid projectiles. Our shields cannot stop them. More human weapons activated. Missiles that split into hundreds of smaller warheads swarmed around Vortan ships, targeting weapon systems and engines with surgical precision. Strange devices that looked like simple metal spheres attached themselves to Vortan hulls and released electromagnetic pulses that disabled entire ships in seconds. Within 10 minutes of the battle starting, half of Kelrax's fleet was disabled or destroyed. His mighty formation was in chaos, ships trying to retreat or maneuver away from weapons they could not defend against. All ships, evasive patterns, Kelrax ordered desperately. Return fire with everything we have. But the human defensive positions seemed to anticipate every move. Their weapons tracked targets with impossible accuracy. Their shields absorbed everything the Vortans could throw at them. And their tactics were merciless in their efficiency. Stone's voice came over the communication channel. Admiral Kelrax, cease fire and surrender. We do not want to kill you. Never, Kelrax roared. All ships, kamikaze protocol. Ram their positions. 10 Vortan ships, their weapons disabled but engines still functional, accelerated toward the human platforms in suicide runs. It was a desperate tactic, but Kelrax had nothing else left. The human response was immediate. Point defense systems that had remained hidden suddenly activated, filling space with a wall of projectiles that shredded the incoming ships before they could reach their targets. Not one Vortan vessel survived long enough to complete its suicide run. Kelrax stared at his displays in horror. Of his 42 warships, only 12 remained functional. 12 ships limping through space with damaged engines and disabled weapons, surrounded by human vessels that could destroy them at any moment. This is Captain Stone. The human's voice was calm, but firm. Admiral Kelrax, this is your final warning. Surrender now, or we will destroy every remaining ship in your fleet. Kelrax looked at the ruins of his mighty armada. He thought about the thousands of crew members floating in disabled ships, waiting to see if they would live or die. He thought about his reputation, his honor, his long career of victories. None of it mattered anymore. All ships, stand down, he said quietly. Power down weapons and engines. We surrender. 2 hours later, Kelrax sat in a small room aboard a human space station. The door opened and Captain Stone entered, followed by Admiral Hayes. The two humans sat across from him, their expressions neutral. "Admiral Kelrax," Hayes began, "do you understand why you lost this battle?" Kelrax said nothing. His pride was shattered, but he would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him broken. Hayes continued anyway. "You lost because you assumed we were primitives. You assumed that because we were unknown, we must be weak. You assumed that your experience conquering other species would apply to us. We have been watching your collective for 63 years, Stone added. We know your tactics, your weapons, your strategies. We built our entire defensive system specifically to counter Vortan capabilities. Every weapon we use today was designed with your ships in mind." Kelrax finally spoke. "You prepared for war with us before we even knew you existed." "Yes," Hayes said simply. "Because we learned what your collective does to species it considers weak. We saw what happened to the Kithar, the Draenei, the Kelmorians. We refused to let that happen to humanity. So what happens now?" Kelrax asked. "You will destroy my remaining ships." "Kill my crews?" Hayes shook his head. "No. We are going to repair your ships, treat your wounded, and send you home with a message for your high command." Kelrax stared at them in disbelief. "Why would you show us mercy?" "Because we are not like you," Stone said quietly. "We do not believe in domination. We do not believe in slavery. We believe that every intelligent species has the right to determine its own future." She leaned forward. "Admiral, humanity wants peace. We want to share knowledge, trade, cooperate with other species. But we will never, ever submit to your collective's authority. We are free people and we will remain free." Hayes stood. "Go home, Admiral Kelrax. Tell your high command what happened here. Tell them that humanity is not a species that can be conquered or controlled. Tell them we offer peace and cooperation, but only between equals. And tell them that if they attack us again, the next battle will not be so one-sided in terms of mercy." 3 weeks later, the surviving Vortan ships limped back into collective space. The entire galaxy watched in shock as news spread of the battle. The mighty Vortan fleet, which had never been defeated, had been crushed by an unknown species that appeared from nowhere. High Chancellor Vren listened to Admiral Kelrax's report in stunned silence. When the Admiral finished, Vren sat back in his chair and looked at the council members surrounding him. "It seems," he said slowly, "that the galaxy has changed. There is a new power among the stars and they will not bow to us." The council debated for days about the proper response. Some wanted revenge, a larger fleet to crush these upstart humans. Others argued for caution, pointing out that the humans had shown mercy when they could have shown destruction. In the end, practical concerns won. The Vortan collective could not afford to lose another fleet. Resources were stretched thin, maintaining control over their existing territory, and the humans had demonstrated both the capability and the will to defend themselves effectively. The official declaration came a month after the battle. The Vortan collective recognized humanity as an independent sovereign power. Trade negotiations would begin. Diplomatic relations would be established. The humans would be treated as equals, not subjects. It was the first time in Vortan history that they had made such a declaration. On Earth, celebrations filled the streets. Humanity had faced its first test among the stars and had proven itself. They were no longer alone in the universe, and they had earned their place through courage, preparation, and the willingness to fight for their freedom. Captain Rebecca Stone stood in Admiral Hayes's office looking down at Earth below. The Admiral joined her at the window. "Do you think this peace will last?" she asked. Hayes was quiet for a moment. "I think we bought ourselves time. Time to grow stronger. Time to find allies among other species tired of Vortan domination. Time to help change the galaxy into something better than it is. And if the Vortans attack again, then we will be ready." "We will always be ready," Hayes smiled. "That is what humanity does best, Rebecca. We prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. And we never ever give up." Stone smiled back. Through the window, she could see dozens of ships moving through Earth's orbit, construction platforms building new vessels, training facilities preparing new crews, research stations developing better weapons and better shields. Humanity had won its first war among the stars. But everyone knew it would not be the last. The galaxy was a dangerous place, filled with species that respected only strength. Humanity had proven it had strength. Now it would prove it had wisdom as well. The Defiance sat in its dock, being repaired and upgraded. Soon it would sail again, carrying humanity's message to the stars. A message of peace and cooperation, backed by the promise that any who threatened humanity's freedom would face the same fate as Admiral Kelrax's fleet. One human ship had appeared and started a war with the galaxy, and in doing so it had changed the galaxy forever.